So, we all, as we become adults and get older, we develop filters. It's one of the things that distinguishes a child, small child, from an adult. Hopefully. Whatever pops into your head at a certain moment kind of runs through different filters. You have one just as an adult filter. You have another filter for work. You have a filter when you're dealing with your kids. Well, hopefully you do. You have a filter dealing with your kids. For myself, I have my priest filter. And hopefully with all these different filters, certain things don't escape through. I'll give you an example of unfiltered speech. So, listen, I mean, as you get older, you kind of, I don't have any false pretenses, right? I don't look like Brad Pitt. I get that. It's okay. I'm married. She's trapped. It's okay. I can look the way I look, and I'm quite content, right? I'm up in Deep River, and I had, every once in a while, facial hair can get itchy, and I'd shave it off. Not part of the sermon, but my kids and my wife know that day, because when I go to shave everything off, I will shave off everything except for that thin toothbrush in the center, and then I'll put a brown shirt on and come down to breakfast. I know it's awful, but what can you do? So I had shaved everything off, and it was the end of the service, and one of the older gentlemen came up to me after. No, sorry. Second part of the story. It was a woman who came up to me the first time, and she said, did you shave off your mustache and goatee? And I said, yeah. I said, it gets itchy, She said, oh, because it makes your face look fat. Adult filter, priest filter. I said, oh, does it? She said, yeah. I said, you realize that's my face, right? She goes, yeah. I preached a sermon. I brought this up, the same story, because it's hilarious. I brought this story up in another sermon. I kid you not. Deep River, a couple of years later, I tell this story, and an older gentleman comes up to me and says, yeah, what were you saying about your mustache and goatee? And I reiterated what I told him about shaving it off and what the woman said. And he said, yeah, it does make you look fat. Still my face. We have these different question. For those of you who are here, I don't expect you to, but I don't know if any of you remember the very first sermon I preached when I was here. No, of course you don't. That's okay. I didn't expect you to. It's okay. You don't have to feel guilty. I gave my monster speech, but before I want to preface it with this. I had a parishioner come to me once again. It was out in Russell, and I preached a sermon, and he came up. He didn't look happy. And he waited until the end of the line, and he came up and he said, you know what, I'm not happy with the sermon. I'm not happy with what you preached. And this one got past my filters. So it went like this. He said, I'm not happy with your sermon. I said, I don't care. And then I had to backtrack because I had to explain what I meant. Now, let me tell you this. No, all kidding aside, I meant what I said. I didn't care. And let me tell you why. Not because I'm a jerk. And this goes to the first sermon I preached when I came here, right? The sermon I preached when I came here is what I call my monster speech. I'm not a tough guy. I don't even pretend to be, right? But what I told you was, I'm not here to be your friend. Now, I like to think over the last 6 years, a lot of us have developed friendships, right? And I try to be friendly with everybody. I like getting along with people. I really do. I heard laughter. I do. But I'm here to be your priest. I'm not here to be your friend. You've got lots of friends. Or some friends. Or maybe one friend. I'm not here to be your friend. When I told that man, when he said, I'm not happy with your sermon, and I said, I don't care. Now I had to explain what I meant. I'm going to explain to you what I mean by that. But it's true, I don't. And I'll tell you why. Happiness and joy. And today we celebrate joy. That's why we light the pink candle. It comes from a time when we realized, this is a time of preparation coming into Christmas. And it's a time of really self-reflection and examination. So this comes from Philippians, it's beginning. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. And so they went with the pink candle to remind us. This is a Sunday that we talk about joy. This is a Sunday that we take a bit of a break from all that self-examination to feel the joy of the Lord. But what I said is true. Joy and happiness are two separate things. Happiness is an emotional state that usually depends upon what's going on. You get that job that you've been trying to get. Your child is born. Good things are going on in your life. You feel happy. Going on holiday. Everyone's coming for Christmas and I get to see my family again. For other people, that doesn't bring happiness, but let's just say theoretically it does. We feel happy because certain things are happening. Joy is a spiritual state. Joy is dependent upon the knowledge of God's presence in our life and what we're doing. I had a great teacher when I was going through seminary. He said there's only one question a Christian needs to ask themselves before they go to bed at night. You know what that is? Were you faithful? Were you faithful? And I'll tell you why that's the most important question, because you may have had a difficult conversation during the day. But if you had that conversation in faith, you had the conversation not because it made you comfortable or uncomfortable, but because you had to have that conversation, then you were being faithful. I've used this before, and I'll use it again. The conversation you have with an alcoholic, the conversation you have with a drug user, the conversation you have with a friend that you believe with all your heart is going off the rails. If you only had the conversations that made you happy, you are not loving your neighbor as yourself. Joy is a certain knowledge that God is with us in all things. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. I do quite a few funerals. Quite a few times these are for people who are very faithful. And the way the world works is often it's a spouse who has suffered the death of their spouse through illness or a sudden violent death, let's say a car accident. And oftentimes people will say, when I ask them how they're doing, obviously in the context of what's going on, how are you today? And they'll say, you know what? I know where he's going. He was a faithful man, and I'm happy about that. And you know they're devastated. Are they happy? No. Are they joyful? Yes. They're joyful in their faith. They know they're going to see their spouse again. They know their spouse is in a better place. Oftentimes, and listen, we don't like to talk about this, but after a protracted, awful illness, there's a relief that comes with that. Not that you're not sorry to see them go, but that they're out of pain now. And we don't like talking about it because it makes us feel guilt. I shouldn't feel relief. I should feel nothing but pain. Wrong. You're unhappy. You're devastated. That's natural. In fact, you'd be a psychopath if you didn't feel that way. But you can also, in those difficult times, feel joy. Joy doesn't depend on what's happening today, or this week, or this month. Joy is the thing in our minds and in our hearts that's that bedrock foundation you're standing on, that no storm, no difficulty, no problem, no devastation can take away from you. You never feel out in the wind. That's what I want for you, and as Christians, that's what we need to want for each other. So when I said to that guy, when he said, I'm not happy, I don't care. It's not that I don't care he's unhappy. It's that I care if he's joyful. That is my first, second, and third priority, is that people feel the joy, that sure and certain knowledge in the Lord. And because the kingdom of God and this world are so different, often they intersect. Joy and happiness go together, but they are not synonymous. And oftentimes as Christians, we can feel joy and not necessarily feel happy. Why is that so important? Because your happiness can be taken away at any moment. You get that call from the doctor, from the tests you had. Boom, joy's gone. You lose your job. You get divorced from your spouse. One of your kids gets sick. Your happiness evaporates instantly. But joy stays forever. Not to say we don't have to work on it. But you know, it's funny in this world, and I've used this before, but it's a readily available example that all of us can relate to. If I told you, pay me $1,200 a year, and then come on over to my place for an hour and a half, and here's the benefit. When you leave, you're going to feel tired, you're going to feel weak, and you're going to feel sore. You go, what place is this that I'm going to pay $1,200? The gym. But we accept that because you know your body will reward you. You feel awful. Well, if you're me, you feel awful, but deep down you feel great because you know you've done the right thing. I'm strengthening my heart. I'm strengthening my lungs. I'm going to feel more energy. You go to the doctor. What do they tell you? Get more sleep. Drink more water. What do you say? 12 years of medical school and that's all you got? My mom's been telling me that for years. But it doesn't make it any less true. And we'll accept this. We'll go on diets to eat food we hate. Because they're better for us. But God forbid we go to church or pray. Those will seem difficult, won't they? I'm not saying God forbid. I don't mean to be snarky. Honest to God, because you're all here, right? But people will often get tied up in knots about how difficult their spiritual life is, and I think, is it? Is it really? Compared to all the other things that we have to do in this life. So I want you to remember, and this I believe leads to true happiness, is that joy in the Lord, to know, no matter what happens to you in this life, God's walking beside you every moment. Illness and death don't have the final word. And as we look forward to the coming of the Christ child, and then later next year to Easter, when Christ dies and is risen again, remember always, these things happen just for you. That's how important you are. And so you deserve the best. You deserve joy in your life. Happiness, great. It is good if you can get it. But man, don't rely on that. If our faith is only based on happiness, it's a house of cards. And the first illness or loss in your life, it's going to come crashing down. And it does for many people. But joy will sustain you through all. And where do you get that? You get that through your prayer, through your meditation, and through gathering together. People say to me, have asked me, can't you be a Christian on your own? Do I have to come to church? Of course you can be a Christian on your own. The same way a research scientist can do only their own experimentation without talking to any of the other research scientists in the world. Not one of them does that, by the way. They're constantly talking to their peers to be challenged. Because as people ask you what you believe and you have to articulate it, you strengthen your own faith. And the things that you can't answer, you go out, you look for the answers, you find them, and you're stronger yet again. So as we light the pink candle today and we celebrate the joy of the Lord, remember how powerful a thing that I want you happy, by the way. Don't go away and say, I went to church today, my priest told me he doesn't care if I'm happy or not. That's not the message. I do care if you're happy, but joyful is where true happiness in our